Some people grew up in families that looked fine from the outside. They were not necessarily poor, they were not necessarily beaten, their grades may even have been good. And yet, around their parents, there was always a strange distance. Something felt wrong, but it was hard to name. Psychology might call this hidden trauma or emotional neglect. In BaZi, also called the 4 pillars, we can look at the same feeling from another angle. Not as blame, not as a sentence against your parents, but as a symbolic structure. Why certain family relationships feel like pressure, even when love is present. In this reading, the question is simple. Why can family love sometimes feel suffocating? In a 4 pillars chart, each pillar carries a different layer of life. The year pillar can point to ancestry, family background, and the older field you were born into. The month pillar often describes the environment that shaped you most directly. Parents, upbringing, early expectations, and the atmosphere around growth. The day pillar is where we locate the self. The day master is the me in the chart. And the hour pillar looks outward and forward, children, later life, and the way your energy eventually moves into the world. So when we talk about the original family, we do not only look at one symbol. We look at the relationship between the year, month, and day pillars. Are they supporting each other? Are they clashing? Is one force protecting the self, while another force keeps pressing it down? That relationship is where the family story begins. The first pattern is a clash between the family field and the self. In BaZi, the earthly branches can form 6 major clashes. These are not gentle tensions. They are direct forms of opposition. For example, imagine Yin in the year branch and Shen in the day branch. Yin is associated with wood. Shen is associated with metal. Metal controls wood, and inside both branches there are hidden stems creating even more layers of conflict. This is not just, I do not get along with my family. It can feel more fundamental than that. The person may grow up feeling that the family's way of doing things is almost physically hard to breathe inside. The problem is not always a lack of love. Sometimes the values, rhythm, and direction of the family field are simply moving against the person's own internal structure. That is why this kind of person may feel blocked when staying too close to the original environment, but strangely freer after leaving it. Distance is not always betrayal. Sometimes distance is how the chart finds room to breathe. Psychology may say, you have conflict with your parents. That can be true, and it can be useful. But BaZi asks a different question. What kind of force is this conflict made of? Is it metal cutting wood? Is it fire being controlled by water? Is the self being supported, drained, or attacked? And just as important, when does this pattern become louder? A family conflict may be quiet for years, and then suddenly become intense during a particular luck pillar or annual cycle. Or the opposite can happen. A person may slowly gain distance, resources, or inner stability, and the same family pressure no longer hits as hard. This is why BaZi is not only about what happened in childhood, it is also about when a pattern gets activated and when it can finally loosen. The second pattern is pressure through the 10 gods. In BaZi, the month command is like the engine of the chart. It tells us which energy has the season, the strength, and the authority to shape the whole structure. So when a certain 10 god appears strongly through the month pillar, it often describes the kind of force a person had to live under while growing up. One important example is 7 killings. When 7 killings is strong and presses against the Daymaster, the feeling is not just discipline. Proper officer is more like rules. You may like the rules or hate them, but at least the rules have a shape. 7 killings feels different. It can feel like pressure, intimidation, or control that does not bother to explain itself. In a family system, this may show up as a very dominant parent, a powerful elder, or even a family rule that everyone obeys without questioning. If the chart has no food god to control 7 killings and no resource star to transform it, the pressure can feel like a blade above the Daymaster. The person may learn only 2 survival strategies. One is to obey completely and shrink the self. The other is to rebel completely and break away. But if the chart contains a way to transform that pressure, the same force can become fuel. The person may turn control into discipline, fear into ambition, and pressure into the drive to build a separate life. The third pattern is the tension between resource and wealth. This is often where the mother theme becomes very delicate. In BaZi, resource can symbolize protection, nourishment, study, shelter, and the mothering function. Wealth can symbolize independence, agency, the ability to go out into the world and obtain resources by yourself. In the 5 elements cycle, wealth controls resource. So when wealth is very strong and resource is weak or rootless, protection and independence may fall out of balance. The person may feel, I have grown up, but my family still treats me as if I am small. Every attempt to make an independent choice triggers the mother's anxiety, and the mother's anxiety turns back into the person's suffocation. But the opposite pattern can also appear. If resource is too strong and wealth is suppressed, the mother's influence can seep into every corner of life. The person may struggle to use their own judgment. They may know what they want, but when it is time to act, something inside feels weak, guilty, or unable to move. Again, BaZi is not saying one person is good and another person is bad. It is showing a relationship between forces. Protection is not wrong. Independence is not wrong. But when the structure cannot hold both, love can begin to feel like pressure. This is the most useful part of the reading. BaZi does not have to decide who was right and who was wrong. It can simply show the structure. Where was the pressure? Where was the protection too heavy? Where did the self have no room? Where did independence become frightening to the family system? Sometimes, just seeing the pattern makes the knot inside loosen. Your original family may show you where the wound began. BaZi tries to show the texture of that wound. What kind of force shaped it, when it gets touched, and what kind of support might help it soften. So, if your relationship with family feels complicated, it may not mean you are ungrateful. It may not mean you are broken. And it may not even mean they did not love you. To be clear, some families truly do not love or protect their children. This reading does not erase that reality. But in many cases, the pain comes from a deeper tension between care and control, protection and independence, family loyalty and personal direction. To see that clearly is already a beginning. If this reading feels familiar, you do not have to use it as a label. Use it as a mirror. Look at your own 4 pillars. Ask where your chart shows support, where it shows pressure, and where your life may be asking for more room to breathe. You can explore your own BaZi structure at FateFolio.com.